You make a bunch of noise out here, so they have peace and quiet in here. Because there's no better sound than the squeak-free guarantee from Advantech Subflooring and Advantech Subfloor Adhesive.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Unbuild It podcast. I'm here with my good friend and colleague Randy Williams.
Hello.
How you doing, Randy?
Good.
And we're going to have an interview with Randy about the work that he does on building performance. And just a quick note here, we have no adult supervision. Jake and Steve are off gallivanting around the world as we know it. So usually Jake is the adult supervision from a technical standpoint, so we are hoping like hell that all this is being properly recorded. And with that, let's jump right in. So Randy, welcome to the Unbuild It podcast.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
And you're with Wilcon Industries. Tell us a little bit about your company.
Okay, so I'm located in northern Minnesota. I'm about 100 miles south of the Canadian border, climate zone 7. The company started, my last name's Williams. My dad named the company Wilcon Williams Construction. It's short for it, so Wilcon. We originally started as a custom home builder. So I spent a little more than 10 years building new homes, some remodeling, garages, agricultural buildings, stuff like that. In 2009, I got a little nervous where the economy was going with the building industry, and I
think there were a lot of us nervous in the building industry in 2009.
So I took an energy auditing class to maybe try to expand my business a little bit. As it turned out, I didn't need to. We stayed busy throughout, but it actually opened my eyes up to how we could possibly do things a little better as far as the building science end of it. To back up a little bit further, I started the industry in the mid-90s as an electrician. I'm actually a licensed journeyman electrician, and then transitioned into the construction and actually swinging the hammer part of the business. But when I took the energy auditing class, I went to our local REA, Rural Electric Co-op, to see if they had a need for an energy auditor, and I was hired on the spot because of my knowledge on the electrical end of it. And so I was doing a few energy audits to begin with for them. They're typically high bill complaints. So that a customer would have a high electric bill, they'd send me in, and I'd have to figure out what was going on. And that's kind of.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, just to start off, I can't believe I'm reminding you this, but tell us your Instagram handle.
Oh. So on Instagram, I'm Northern Built Pro, and I named that. I actually started a blog. It's www.northernbuilt.pro, and that's where the Instagram handle. I had never been on Instagram or any social media up until 2018 when I started this blog, and I figured, well, I'll join Instagram and hopefully promote it a little bit. Maybe I'll get a little bit of traction off from Instagram for it, but I actually started having fun. I kind of like Steve, I think, where he all of a sudden started to enjoy Instagram a little bit and showing some stuff, and then all of a sudden you got some followers, and it's been a different experience for me.
So it's funny, Randy, we've been working together for a little bit now. I didn't know you had a blog. That's cool.
Yep.
How often do you post, do you think?
2 to 3 times a month.
Oh, that's good.
So yeah, I've got about 140 posts on it, and it's cold climate geared. So
well, and let's be fair, what's the temperature in your neck of the woods this morning?
This morning we're a little above 0.
Yeah, and so I'm in southern Vermont, and we got the weather that you've been sending us, and so it's about 5 degrees here right now.
Okay.
So most of the time you're quite a bit colder.
We are. Yes.
We're climate zone 6 and you're 7, right?
We're 7. Yeah. Yesterday morning we were 20 below. We've seen 30 below this year already. So yeah.
You have.
Yes. Yeah. We've got some
cool
weather.
When we talk about your business, all those Unbuild It folks that are out there that are, quite a bit south, just hold on to your hat because it's going to be a frigid discussion.
Exactly.
All of the building science is still the same. It just gets expressed a bit differently.
It does. Yep. Yep.
So, Randy, I remember you telling me that in addition to energy auditing, you work for some insurance companies. Do you still do that?
No, I used to. I did. It was a risk assessment for two different small mutual insurance companies in the area, and they would take on policies that had a little bit more risk, maybe something that had a wood stove, or I was on islands, doing inspections where if something started on fire, they weren't putting it out. It was going to go to the ground. So you're always in looking at the risk of these policies, but you get to see so much doing that. You get to see some really ugly stuff. You get to see some really cool stuff. It was an eye opener. It was very fun. It was a fun job.
So your Wilcon business with energy auditing is now pretty much all that you do?
That, and I still swing the hammer once in a while. Well, more than I'd like to. I keep trying to move away from the construction end of it. I keep getting drawn back in, but yeah. So I like the energy side of it. What am I working on? A log cabin.
Yeah.
the opposite of energy efficient.
Hey, family businesses, that's the way it goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you're working as an energy auditor, you and I did a presentation together at the Midwest Building Science Symposium in September, because I do building assessments just like you do, but mine are not related to compliance with any energy programs. Mine are strictly people that have performance issues. More probably like the work that you did when you were working with the insurance companies. Mm-hmm. But we found an awful lot of common ground in our work, as well as some differences. So tell us a little bit about how your work as an energy auditor is connected to building performance problems.
Well, it's all what you see. You go into a home that maybe has a high electric bill, for instance, and depending on how they're heating the home, it may be electric, it may be some other issue that they've got going on anyways. But getting in and looking at their air sealing or their insulation strategy, or do they have something open to the outside that they're just not aware of? A chimney chase that from the attic to the basement. I've seen that where you start to blow her up and it just about blows your hat off when you walk underneath this one spot. So. You're seeing a lot of different things.
And so when you start to work with clients, let's say somebody calls you and says, "Hey, I've got really high energy bills. I want to hire you to help me figure it out." Do you have a standard form that you use that's from someplace else, or is it something you've customized?
I've customized it to my climate. It's I'm asking questions like, do you see moisture on your windows? That's going to tell me if there's none and it's 20 below out, well, they've got to probably have a high natural air exchange rate. Things are dry inside the house. They're probably teens or 20s for humidity levels. That tells me something. Okay, maybe we got to do a blower door test. Maybe we have to do some looking around some other things. So
it's funny. Your job is as an energy auditor, but one of the first questions you ask about is related to moisture.
It is.
So you and I have talked about this before. The physics rules and moisture and energy are connected right at the hip. But instead of running a hygrometer, you're using the windows as your indication of what type of moisture levels they have inside the home in the winter.
I am, and
that's funny.
Depending on the windows, I mean, if you've got a standard 2-pane window in my climate, for instance, yesterday 20 below. If you're 30-35%, you're going to start seeing a little bit of moisture at the bottom of the window.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
I've seen triple pane windows with a lot of moisture on them, and that's, of course, they've got a high humidity issue going on.
So we'll come back to the connection to moisture, but when you're working with the client, you almost always ask for their utility bills up front, right, for a whole year.
If I'm working with, I have a contract with a rural electric co-op, and they are supplying me with that information. So, and a lot of times I'm at a new house that the homeowner maybe just bought. I was at one a couple days ago. They've been there since July, and they don't have access to the stuff previous. The power company won't supply them with the information.
Oh, so they give you the annual energy, but not to the client.
Not, at least
that's
not
fascinating.
not before they purchased it. So.
I see.
And the customers often, well, look at that. Matter of fact, the one I was at, they had a $1,200 electric bill last February, and
Whoa.
the current owner didn't know. He didn't know that was that high. So of course we're looking at why is it that high.
And so if they're, once you know where they're getting their energy for various loads, you can then use the annual to look at their sort of base loads, which are non-heating and cooling.
Exactly.
In comparison over that whole year.
Yeah.
That tells you a lot.
It does. That for us, it's that April, May, and then again September, October. We might have a little bit of heating in there. Typically, no cooling at those times. Those will give me my baseline of where the house sits.
Sort of the shoulder season.
Exactly.
Months.
Yep.
So, Randy, if you're working with a client, do you get busier during the winter because of the relationship between moisture and energy in Minnesota?
Yeah. So right now is when I'll start seeing the majority of my requests. I'm sitting on, I don't know, I have maybe a half dozen through the power company now, and maybe another half dozen of private people that have contacted me with ice dam problems or something like that. But right now is typically where I'll see anywhere from 30 to 50 between now and June.
So when you're working with clients then, do you ever put off any work saying, like for me, if it's not cold, then I can't use an infrared camera and a blower door to figure out what's going on. I'm gonna have to use a fogger, but do you ever say, I'll take a look, but I'm gonna come back when it's cold?
Typically not, because I'm not paid to go back a second time. I'm only, just the way the fee schedule works. And if we think, and I have gone back. The customers actually requested 2, and I've had a couple of them that requested 3 energy audits because it wasn't conclusive when I was there, so they requested it again, and I'd gone back out and maybe found a problem at that time. Yeah.
And so when you're working with a client and you've made some progress on why you think their energy bills are high, what's the relationship between your work as an energy auditor and then the scope of work and who does it? Like, how does that work? Does the rural co-op just say, hey, look, that's not your job. You just give them the info and then it's up to them to figure out who to get to help.
The rural co-op doesn't, they don't specify anything like that. They really don't worry about it. For me though, I don't want to go in and say, hey, you've got this problem, but I'll come in and fix it for you. I mean, I kind of changes my credibility possibly. I've had some few customers say, we don't care. I mean, we want you to come in. Usually I turn it down anyways because it's not the type of work, I don't have the equipment to go blow insulation into an attic or evacuate insulation out of an attic, try to the air sealing and stuff like that. So I typically just stay out of that part of it.
In our neck of the woods, and this is a huge issue because if a company, because we have less than 500,000 people in the whole state, there is the issue of, well, I don't have enough auditing business to just do that. So I also do actual work on buildings. So there's that tension between, hey, how do people feel about the person who does the audit also being involved in the work?
Yep. And then that's kind of why I still swing the hammer, but it's usually typically not on an energy related project. It's just an addition or to
sort of keep you squeaky clean in your energy auditing business.
Yes.
Is it hard to find enough high performance contractors to recommend to folks when you've identified the problem?
If it's a high performance, if we're trying to go that, there are very few that I'm aware of up here. As a matter of fact, I have a job offer with a bigger contractor to run a high performance project he has coming up. It's a 6,800 square foot high performance building living challenge project that it's got some details that he's never seen, and that's what he was asking me to be involved with. We'll see if it happens.
So that makes me think of another question, Randy, which is, let's say that your work as an energy auditor has identified mechanical system issues. Is it easier or harder to find a high performance company that focuses on the enclosure compared to a problem that requires a high-performance mechanical contractor?
We're so rural that we've got one company that I know of for sure that's that deals with Mitsubishi's products. So they're doing heat pumps and stuff like that. But I don't know that they know to ask, as far as the sizing of the unit. Are they asking for for instance, the air tightness level? What's your goal with air tightness? They're probably just plugging in the code minimum at 3. And so you might have something that's somewhat oversized or maybe a lot oversized, when they actually achieve something less than 1 with the air tightness level.
Because in our neck of the woods, we have quite a few high-performance contractors, builders, remodelers. But man, it is really hard to find seasoned mechanical contractors that can work on high-performance mechanical equipment.
And not just the mechanical contractors, the electricians and the plumbers too, to know whose job is it to seal that big hole that they put in the ceiling or that they drill through the wall. A lot of times the contractor doesn't take care of that. And I've got lots of pictures of big gaping holes in the side of the house that the house rat shredded and nobody's taking care of it.
So another big issue is, I find, trying to explain to people, okay, so I did a blower door test, I'm going to recommend that you tighten the house. But now that you've tightened the house enough, we have to introduce a mechanical ventilation system to bring in fresh air.
Yep.
Like, that is just really hard for almost anybody to get their head wrapped around.
It is.
Is that an issue with your customers?
Kind of. Minnesota's a little bit unique in that we've required balanced mechanical ventilation on all new construction since a little after 2000, 2002, somewhere in there. So
no kidding.
Yeah, so we've had it for a long time.
So a 20-year history of requiring mechanical ventilation.
Yep, and most people are aware. They've at least they have an idea what it is. A lot of people disconnect them. The houses that we were putting them in 2005, 2010 maybe weren't as tight as they needed to be, or it could have been, and they're over ventilating a little bit, or the customers may be experiencing some comfort when it's 20 below out and it's pulling that cold air in. It's dumping right over their bed or real close to them in the living room. So there's some education that's, even today, we still need some education to the contractors to make sure that these things are getting dumped in the right location, not to create a problem with comfort, to make sure that they're operating. They're not getting unplugged. And
now, I think you just said that since the early 2000s, not mechanical ventilation, but balance.
Yes.
So that means that you're not, in affordable housing projects, coming anywhere near exhaust-only mechanical ventilation systems?
Nope. And I can't say about the multifamily because I don't get to see many of those. But I know the city does. The city of Grand Rapids, when they inspect something in their area, it's one of the things they're looking for. They're making sure that's balanced and that they have a report that it has been balanced. It's not something that just got thrown up and hopefully it's working.
That's interesting, because I still get projects here, but particularly multifamily, where I get questions about, wait a minute, those balance systems, they're just like way too expensive. Is there another approach? And in cold climates, there are folks using exhaust only, but it brings a lot of issues with it.
Yeah.
All right, Randy. So a lot of people have been waiting for us to stop beating around the bush and get to the equipment, the stuff that we like to talk about, right? So, and when we did the presentation back at the Midwest Building Summer Symposium, you and I had a presentation where you talked about the equipment we like to use. So, let's start with what your very favorite or most used piece of equipment is in your work.
Okay. As far as the energy auditing portion of it, it's a multimeter for me. So I'm in electrical service panels, I'm testing circuits, testing loads.
So this is not because you're a licensed electrician, this is because you're an energy auditor that you use that most, right?
I mean, having the licensed electrician helps with the confidence of opening up a service panel and sticking your fingers in there. But yeah, it's because I'm doing this for power companies, it's something that a lot of times it's a high bill complaint, and I need to know where it's going. So it answers a lot of information for me.
Do you ever work on a project where you are not doing a blower door test? Or is that almost always part of the diagnosis?
No, because the power company pays for, well, actually it's an energy assessment. It's not a full audit. So I'm in making my best guess basically of what I think is going on with the house. If they want a blower door test, the power company will not pay for it. It falls on the homeowner themselves to pay for that test. And I'd say maybe 10% of the energy assessments I do will include a blower door test.
Interesting. And so does this mean that most of your work is on existing homes, but what's the split between existing homes and new construction?
The majority of it is existing homes. When I'm on a new construction, it's going to be a code-compliant type blower door test as long as it's within the city limits where it's required. If you get outside the city where there is no inspection, there's only a couple contractors that I actually work with that'll have order a blower door test at that point. Most of them it's no inspection, so they don't care, which I don't think is right, but it is what it is.
So sticking with the tool topic a little bit, so after the multi-tool, which is looking at profiling the electric loads and system in the building, what are some other ones that you like pulling out and flashing in front of people?
Yeah, of course, the blower door is the next one. I think that is my favorite tool to use. It's the amount of information that it can give you. You can tell where the holes are, where to concentrate your work at. If you're looking for the holes, but it also gives you the number. I mean, you're going to have a CFM number or air exchange per hour number, or you'll have the leakage on the surface of the building, however you want to interpret that data.
You just brought up an interesting point, which is I've talked to some energy auditors that say, hey, look, we just get paid for the number, so that we can accomplish that in 10 or 15 or say a half an hour.
Yep.
But to me, I think it's a real tragedy that you've gone in, you've set up a blower door, and you've gotten the number, and all you know is the sum total air leakage, but doesn't the location of the leaks and the size of them, isn't that important too? It's like, hey, that takes a lot of time to go around and find them. So when you're doing your energy audit, are you under any pressure to just get the number, or can you spend the extra time to identify the leaks?
So I guess the answer to that is it depends. When I'm doing a code compliant blower door test, the number is the only thing that matters. If I'm by my house, a lot of times I'm by myself in the house. Everybody else is gone. I'm curious. I'm going to take my thermal imaging camera. I'm going to wander around and see. Okay, here's a problem. That's a problem. That's a problem. None of it's probably ever going to get fixed. Even if I pointed it out to the homeowner or the builder, by the time I'm testing, they're pretty much done. Their crews have gone. It's pretty much finished. But for me, curiosity-wise, I want to know. I want to know where the leaks are, where I should be concentrating efforts. It's a learning process to me.
That's really interesting. So you just can't resist identifying where the leaks are and how big they are.
No.
Yeah. Because see, in my work, because I'm not doing it for another company, I'm almost always telling the client, look, we got to get the number, but just as important is where and how much it's leaking. Okay, so you've mentioned a couple times that when you pull out your infrared camera, what do you do if you don't have the inside-outside temperature difference, the delta T, to pull out your infrared camera, and you want to identify the leaks?
If I can, I'll do zonal pressure testing.
What do you mean by zonal pressure testing?
So I'm taking a manometer and I'll seal off or isolate a portion of the house to see if I have a difference in pressure. I'll throw the hose underneath the door, shut the door. I'm standing on one side of the door, the hose is on the other. If I have a large change in pressure between the two, I'll know there's some connection that I'm worried about.
Excellent. So shy of a fogger, which is kind of what I was thinking you were going to bring up, you can use digital pressure gauge pressure differences from different areas of the building to get a sense of where the air leakage is coming.
Yep. And I have used flat foggers, but a lot of times the customers might be a little apprehensive about they're living in the home and I'm filling the whole thing up with smoke. It's a fog. It's not. There's a few questions on that, but yeah.
Yeah. So you know, I too do theatrical fogging when I don't have the Delta T to use an infrared camera, but it's a pain in the butt. You know, you're switching to pressurizing the building as opposed to depressurizing. You do get questions about, well, my dog's going to be inside the house. Is that going to be a problem? And of course, there's always the issue of making sure you contact the local fire department.
Yes. I've been lucky. I've done that every time, sir. Either that or I'm far enough away from site of anything where it's not an issue. But
yeah, in rural Minnesota, it's a little bit easier to avoid the fire department.
I'm waiting to contact them and then having them want to come out and watch.
You know, and it's funny because, you know, shy of filling the whole building with smoke, you can use a puffer, you know, small amounts, and identify the leaks that way. And I didn't know that, and by the way, I'm pretty biased. I'm wearing the Minneapolis Duck Blaster hat from the Energy Conservatory. But Gary Nelson, the founder of TEC, just came out with a little, he calls it the puffer prototype. And I think Unbuild a Podcast, I think we've done a little bit of a short clip on how it works, but tell me a little bit about how you use the new puffer.
Same thing. I'm looking for the smaller air leaks. Well, you can find a big one to it too. But it's just a little bit of smoke. It's not filling a whole room up. It's just how do you put it?
Well, it's a small stream of smoke that you get, or fog.
Yep.
So, and you're probably, is your head down because you're actually going to show us your
I am.
fogger?
Not the fogger.
But the puffer.
Yep. So
cool.
This is the latest edition of Fine Home Building. I don't know when this is going to come out. I
awesome.
managed to get on the cover. I've got 2 articles in here. But
that's very cool, Randy.
It is very cool. So there's an article I did on the puffer.
Air leak tracing that's the new TEC puffer.
Yep.
Awesome. So one of the things, Randy, that I really like about the puffer is that I probably have purchased 3 or maybe even 4 other, you know, small glycol puffers, and the problem always is the batteries and you know, the separation between that really slippery glycol and what it does to batteries. And I think Gary solved the problem with this e-cigarette engine, because I'm having a much better experience with being able to keep the battery from seeing that glycol using the e-cigarette engine. What about you?
He same thing, and he mentioned that when he designed that, there's a small backflow check valve in it, and that's what's keeping, I think, that glycol from moving backwards. It releases that pressure after you squeeze so it doesn't end up moving opposite direction.
Well, the thing I like too is that because the separate pieces allow you to quickly and easily separate the battery from the reservoir of the fluid.
Yep.
So the puffer comes in a bag, but the very first thing I did was I took all the components, like the cartridge and the bottles of the glycol, and I put them in a plastic bag.
Yep.
So they're totally separated from the e-cigarette batteries.
Yep. And
holy smokes, it's problem solved. So the only time that the battery, and the other thing is the connection between the battery and the e-cigarette reservoir is a screw-on thing, and it's very clear. You can keep those separate as soon as you're done the puffing. So I think this is a puffer that's going to last a lot longer than the other ones I've had.
Yep, and I learned the lesson the hard way. I actually had them all in one container. The first one that I had, and it mixed up, and it didn't work very long. So.
And you know, the very first thing I did was I thought, I can take these apart and keep the fluid parts separate from the battery parts, because they do not like each other in the long run.
Nope.
Very cool.
Yep, worked well so far. And I've actually had mine. I think I got it last April, March maybe. So I've had mine for quite a while.
So you've had this prototype puffer for almost a year?
Yep. I went and toured the Energy Conservatory down in Minneapolis. While I was there, Gary handed me this and said, "Here, try this out." So
no
very
kidding.
Cool. Yeah.
So you got a free one.
I did.
It's always good. I got a free hat. You got a free puffer.
Yep.
All right. So tell me, think a little bit about what about are some other tools that, or crazy shit that you've seen in your energy audits?
Crazy stuff. Well, let's start with maybe my latest tool. I just picked this up. I know I have to get a good moisture meter, and I haven't done that yet. But I want to be able to accurately measure airflows on exhaust fans and HRVs. So I picked up, I think it's pronounced ACIN, A-C-I-N.
A-C-I-N.
Yep, it's a powered flow hood. So it's actually got a small motor on it. As you're testing, for instance, a bath fan, it matches the flow with the motor, and it's able to
so rather than passively using a flow hood that has a pressure gauge system to measure or use pressure as a proxy for flow, you have one that's a powered flow hood, so it matches, and then you're absolutely nailing.
Very accurate.
Oh, I've never. How new is this?
It's actually been around for a while. It's made by a Dutch company. But I purchased it through the only United States distributor that I know of is Retrotech, the other blower door manufacturer.
The other blower door. So they're carrying it as part of their line of
they are
offerings?
Yep. And then they have all the capabilities there to update the hardware, the software, or balance or calibrate the unit if it needs. It's I think once a year is when they recommend it going back in to have calibration done. So it's a little more often than a blower door. I think the new blower door manometers are 3 years on the TEC before they need to be recalibrated.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've had a couple of projects lately where you can use the toilet tissue thing where if it holds one ply, it's 20 CFM and so on. But I don't have a typical flow hood, a passive one. Certainly don't have the power flow equipment. But that's an important element of determining what's going on in the building.
Yeah, especially, you can test the bath fans, you can test HRV, ERV units, you can test forced air ventilation systems. You can actually slip it right over a duct or a register, and it'll tell you what the CFM flow is.
That's
just
awesome.
Commission, yeah.
So sort of as a wrap-up, Randy, and a good segue is, when you're looking for information about high-performance buildings in your work, what are one or two of the top resources that you go to?
Well, number one is Building Science Corp.
So www.buildingscience.com?
Yeah. Joe is such a huge influence, on the industry, and he's got the Building Science Insights. That whole 127 blog posts on that just so well done. So much information. So many different topics. It's great.
It's funny you should say that, because a recent Unbuilt It podcast was a tribute to Building Science Corporation, because both Steve and I worked there, and we owe so much to the work that they've been doing for the last 30 years. It's pretty awesome.
It's huge.
And any others besides Building Science?
The Green Building Advisor. Which I am. You were contributing an author on that. You had quite a bit of information, and that's actually where I learned of you. This was back.
Oh, interesting.
2017, 2018, when I really started to follow on Green Building Advisor. I read several articles and I clicked with you. I just, this is the stuff that I need to know.
Cool.
And when I joined Instagram, you were the second person I tried to find, but you weren't there.
Now Steve and Jake are going to see this one, and they're going to nail me even harder. Yeah, social media and I remember when we first had a social media expert at Building Green many, many years ago, and she wrote to me and said, in which social media do you engage? And I wrote back, what's social media? And then she just went off on me, and then I had to tell the president of the company, please, find somebody else to deal with this person. You hit a sore spot, Randy.
Sorry. Mike Gurton was the one, the first guy I looked for.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah. And then Steve and Jake were actually 3 and 4. You guys were the group that I.
Cool. Well, Randy, can't thank you enough for joining us on the Unbuilt It podcast. It's such a pleasure to have you. And I just want to make a note. We have not said one single negative word about either Jake or Steve.
Do we want to?
No, because then it would double the length of the podcast, wouldn't it?
It would. It would.
Yeah. Well, Randy, thanks for taking the time out of your work day. And all those folks out there, hope you enjoyed this Unbuild It podcast. Randy, give them your Instagram handle one more time.
Northern Build Pro, all one word.
Excellent. And if you like the Unbuild It podcast, make sure you hit subscribe. And until next time, take care and more high performance buildings.
Thank you.
Thanks, Randy.